Hello and welcome to Retro Reviews, my channel where I review my favorite retro video games of all time as well as some modern releases I have recently finished. Sorry for the super late video today. I was feeling a little bit under the weather this morning, but I got feeling a lot better and I found something that I thought was so interesting I knew I needed to talk about it today. And that is Nintendo going after another Switch emulator and essentially winning here. So apparently there is a Switch emulator called Ryujinx that was being developed originally by like one person that expanded to a few more developers getting on. It was a C# program written for Windows, Linux, and Mac, and it was making great progress. I believe it was working to some degree, and apparently Nintendo contacted the lead developer and arranged some kind of agreement to stop working on it and hand over all the assets that they had created for the Switch emulator. And apparently that was just what had started going on, and then the site got shut down. So it's very clear that that's what ended up happening. Agreement was made to do so, likely to mitigate any damages they would likely have to pay to Nintendo, since Nintendo did win out on the Yuzu emulator, and $2.5 million worth of damages had to be paid out. So it's not surprising Nintendo is doing this, going after another Switch emulator. The Switch is still their main console that they are selling to this day, but it's really concerning. It's really such a bummer, because for the Yuzu emulator, the main problem was that people were paying money. They were had like a Patreon essentially to get better features and such like that. So they were profiting off of this emulator, whereas you typically need to make these free. You don't charge anything for them. You don't collect money from people. Stuff like that typically is the rule of thumb in order to avoid litigation. But since Nintendo won out on the Yuzu emulator, I'm sure this developer did not want to take a chance with Nintendo. They did not want to be in the ballpark of millions of dollars when they're not pulling in money for this project. So it is unfortunate to see, because again, emulation, the whole point of emulation is to preserve video games. All the people that want to talk about piracy, you're full of crap. Like, people that pirate games, those are the problem. Go after those people. Making emulators is a great way to preserve a console, especially something that's very unique. It's like a 3DS emulator or a Nintendo DS emulator with the dual screens. Preserving that console is really difficult because it has such unique features, but being able to do so means that we get to preserve those games for the future. Now, emulators themselves are not illegal, not as of yet, at least in the United States. Hopefully that remains the case here, but the emulators themselves are not illegal. They are completely legal. You can download them and utilize them as much as you want. What is illegal is downloading ROMs online, or like other people's files of their games. So their versions that they uploaded onto the internet and that you're essentially pirating now. That is not legal, especially not for modern day consoles. For the Nintendo Switch, if you're downloading ROMs for the Switch, you are actively pirating games that can be purchased. So that's a big no-no, especially in Nintendo's eyes. I believe they said that Tears of the Kingdom is pirated over 1 million times in a very short window of time after it launched. It sold well over 15 million units, so clearly they're doing very well, but another 1 million units on top of that is very substantial. So they want to kind of mitigate this right now, since the Switch is their current console that they are selling. So I can understand what they're doing here. It is still a bummer though, because we don't want this to become the norm. We don't want these emulators to be going after like older versions of emulators. We don't want the Nintendo and the SNES, the 64, the handhelds, all of them. We don't want those to start going down as well. So hopefully this isn't a sign of things to come, but I'm not super optimistic either. I hope when the Switch 2 launches and people are focusing on that and people are buying that one, then we can have our Switch emulators, and that can be no big deal, because the whole point is getting that emulator and then uploading your own files so that you can play them on your computer, like utilize like frame rates, like better frame rates and such. If you have a computer that can do that, typically people will upload their Switch files onto like a Steam Deck or something and have the emulator running on that. And then they can get 60 frames per second because it's a more powerful console that they're utilizing it on. That's kind of the idea. So I am bummed to see this. I understand Nintendo's stance. It's not my favorite thing. Hopefully other things aren't going down. We have had with the Yuzu emulator, we lost a 3DS emulator as well, since it was part of the same project. I know there's other things out there already. I have several emulators as well that hopefully can just preserve there. They can sit there so I can upload my own files later on. But we just don't want to see a lot of these things going down. I'm very passionate about emulation. I did a video over with Shin 0555. If you want to go check that out, it's called Text Box. I'll link in the description if I remember to do that when I'm editing this video. But go check him out. Again, that is XIN0555. We did a video talking about emulation and how much we love emulation, how it preserves so many games that are just going to be lost to time if we don't keep them, up and around. So all these games that aren't being sold anymore, what are we going to do? How are we going to find them? Can't just go out and buy used copies. They don't exist very much anymore, and it's going to be really expensive. So having those readily available is important, in my opinion. Those older games, I don't see a problem with having those up and about. Having like an internet archive type thing for games is really important, so we can experience a lot of those things. There's lots of games that I don't want to go missing, even like especially a bunch of obscure ones that are just really odd and unique and really fun. I want those to be preserved. So whenever I talk about emulation, I just want to get a little bit passionate because it is something I really love and something I think is really important. Let me know in the comment section down below what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.